What's up, guys? I wanted to pop in here and give you your mission today in the form of a video as you're working through your Apex Guide. I hope that you're working through your Apex Guide. Gentlemen, remember this. We're not coming out of this life alive. And I'm going to start off with that story right there. So we're not coming out of this life alive. That should not scare you. It should motivate you. It's called Mortality Motivation. That's what the Stoics called it. It's been called other things throughout our time, but that should sober you up, right? Hey, I'm going to die. So you can either choose to exist or you can choose to live. And that should snap you right in two. So the first time I ever experienced what intuition was like was when I was in third grade. And my family's from Central Arkansas. I went to a small Catholic school in Russellville, Arkansas. And in third grade, my teacher was Sister Elizabeth. I was taught by nuns. But we were a very tight-knit, close community. And my mother is the youngest of seven. And her older sister, which was Aunt Paulette, she's like my second mother, they're hooked at the hips, almost like twins, right? Almost like twins. And we at the time were driving our black Ford truck. It was one of the smaller trucks. It wasn't even an F-150 for that matter. My sister and I were in the back. I'll never forget. It was red pleather inside, and we were making the turn in Blackwell, Arkansas, and you see rice fields, soybean fields, my family farms, and we're making the turn by the liquor store. Now, this is before cell phones were even around, right? This was in the 80s. And I remember getting a gut feeling. I hadn't heard my parents talk about any of this before we arrived at my cousin's birthday party. It was my cousin Bart's birthday party. And that's what we were headed for. When we pulled up, they lived in this single-wide trailer on the farm, and it's my Uncle Bruce, his family, that's been in the farm's been in the family for generations, from Papa Audie, who is a World War II veteran, and people are everywhere. And I see my cousins out on the porch, and I see them crying. One's distraught. I didn't know what was going on, but in third grade, I remember rounding the corner and I see the Riceland bins and etc. And I just felt it in my gut, like something wasn't right. And we walk up, and what had ended up happening is my Uncle Bruce was coming back from Riceland to drop off rice, and he ended up getting into an accident, and it killed him instantly. He went through the windshield, it killed him instantly. And my cousins, my cousin Kyle, my cousin Bart was like my older brother, my cousin Kyle was like my older brother, hooked at the hip, still hooked at the hip, and my Aunt Paulette, they were in their 30s. I'm 37 years young right now. And my dad was Uncle Bruce's best friend. He and Uncle Bruce were connected in the family because they were the son-in-laws, right? And I'll just never forget my dad barreling out of the truck, my mom barreling out of the truck, and I remember seeing my Aunt Paulette on the front porch just screaming and bawling her eyes out. Bart is in the house, and I see my cousin Justin consoling him. Kyle's kind of blank in the face. Candace, she's in kindergarten at that time, and then Brandy's the oldest, right? And that was the first time as a child that I was sober to the fact that this life that we all live is short. And I'm not telling you that to make this some dark or bring you down or anything like that. No, I saw my aunt, with the help of my mom, emerge from this victoriously. We lived with them for a while and got to see Kyle and Bart and Brandy and Candace. They grew up without their dad, and they got to experience that at a very, very young age. I got to experience it through them. And of course, it doesn't play out until later in life. But I got to see how short this life truly is. So as you're going through Apex, my man, as you're going through Apex and you go through lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3, I want you reverse engineering everything back from Mortality Motivation, right? And it's not there to get you down and out. It's there to snap you in two. So when you're asking yourself the power of questions, let's talk about lesson 1. And I'm not going to, come in, baby. I'm not going to prescribe anything that I don't do myself. Man, I am a junkie when it comes to this life that I live. If I don't program it, someone else will. It is my duty, my obligation, as a man to expand myself in all aspects, all right? To expand myself in all aspects for that young lady that's staring at me right now, for that young man that's upstairs, and for my wife, and to leave generation after generation impact. I'm leaving a wake of impact, all right? And that's important to me, and that's how I filter everything. So when you ask the questions, the bigger the question is going to require, the bigger the move, which is going to equal bigger the result, right? And in my first training, live training, I talked about the rifle approach. Everything I do is from a rifle approach. Now, you're not going to go out to the range and hit 1,000 yards if your glass isn't sighted in. We've ran tactical academies in SOM, and guys have, they have expensive weapon systems, expensive glass, and they don't even know how to shoot their damn gun, right? You know, we're going to start off with the basics and the fundamentals, but remember the word rifle, relevancy, illustrate why. The middle letter is the most important, friction. L is legacy, E is execution, right? And we'll get into more of that, and I'll talk more about my story in the next live training. But in lesson 1, there's a major difference between what you truly want and what you have to have. What you truly want and what you have to have, right? And how the sense of urgency is going to propel you to 10x your life. 4.5, 5 years ago, financially, myself, Ashley, the kids, doing phenomenal, right? But that wasn't the most important thing that was in my life at that moment, right? It was winning Ashley's heart back and me getting right in here. So I had to use the rifle approach. That's what I had to use. It doesn't matter how many businesses I launched, how fast my wealth was accumulating, right? None of that stuff matters if you're not lockstep with your queen, your family, speaking of my queen, your family, and none of that stuff matters. So like I had to go to work on self and use the rifle approach emotionally, stop the lying once and for all, stop the shame, stop the self-sabotage, because that other stuff's going to ultimately rise with you. I believe in that. See, we're not here to be the fastest driver, we're here to build the fastest car. So when you go through this, what is the outcome I truly want? I want you thinking in terms of immortality. I want you thinking in terms of big vision, right, for yourselves, but bringing it back, applying the rifle approach in the 1% mindset that we preach in some. And I'll read mine. And I broke this into from a life perspective. I'm always doing this, and I'm doing it into 2022. Understanding the rifle approach is what's going to accelerate my growth. Immortality through my actions. That's what my first sentence was in the first question. And I'm not going to read all this. And I go from I want, right, to I will, to I have to have. I must have that. There's a difference between someone who is hungry and someone that's starving. All right, the guys that have accumulated some wealth, some success in their life, everything's going well within their marriage, maybe, you know, they're intimate 2 or 3 times a week. Those are the guys that scare me the most, because they're the ones that are going to fall susceptible to the complacency mindset. The guy that has nothing, the guy that is on his ass, the guy where I was 4.5, 5 years ago that had to climb out of a hole, and we're not looking to put ourselves back in that hole from a self-sabotage perspective. Those are the guys that are hungry as hell, that are starving. And that's something you have to possess the more you evolve as a man. I will be remembered as a man who gave his all to bettering this world. I'm not interested in just changing one life. I'm interested in changing the entire world. There is a major difference there. I won't read the rest. What is the purpose behind my wants? Why do I want this particular outcome? It says go deep, right? Everything comes back to me to freedom, right? There's 5 things we all need as men. You need fitness, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, connection with our queen, with our kids, with like-minded men, high-caliber men, right? Wealth. I don't care who you are, accumulating wealth in knowledge, intellectual capital, emotional capital, but also, you know, men create money, machines print it. That is important because it creates memories. Think in that term. Everything you do is about making memories. Number 4 is leadership, but the 5th one is the most important one, is freedom, right? It's freedom. That's what we're all searching. That's what this life is about. All right, so when you go behind the purpose, go deep with it. Don't get surface with us. All right, this is important as we get closer to being more tactical on how to help you dominate 2022. And then the action plans. This is where a lot of guys fail and trip over their feet. They want to do 1,000 different things. Remember, rifle, 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 not shotgun. And what we're looking for in the beginning, no matter where you are, is to set that bar. So we're thinking in this frequency, but we're going to set the bar so we trip over to create momentum. That's the 1% rule. 1% every single day, and I'm focusing on those gains and I'm not focusing on the gaps. So as you get into lesson 2, the importance of focus over distraction. This is a big one, and I would really go back to what is the law of inversion. Tell me, what are the things that I don't want, right? So for me, in 2021, where I found myself getting my eye off the prize was in the political landscape and getting caught up too much in it and understanding what's going on. That's not making me money, right? I have to understand what's going on, but I don't need to be sucked into the vortex there, right? And that's what it's designed to do. I don't watch mainstream media. That stuff's trash. I've never really watched it. It's just from Fox to CNN to all of them. I wish they all go down in flames, right? I want the truth, but at the same time, what am I giving up to find that, right? Text messaging, getting caught in like those group text messages we all do. Funny text messages, they're good from time to time, but if it's not serving me, my family, and my goals and my mission, then I have to get away from that. You're gonna find yourself getting into it. I don't scroll social media. I use social media for business. It's a necessary evil at the end of the day. And so, are you focused on the right actions to move you closer to your future self? Who is that man? Who is that man in 2022? Who is that vibrant man in 2025? Who is that vibrant man in life in general? That's how I filter everything back. So example being, if God allows me to be here in my 60s, I'm going to be younger then than I am at 37. I am going to be that grandfather with his grandkids that they're keeping up with this guy, right? This guy. Okay, but focus on the law of inversion of the things that you do not want as much as the things that you do want. And remember, it goes from want to have to have. I had to have Ashley, and still do to this day. I know when we are off. If that shit's off, everything else is off. It doesn't matter how many rental properties I do. It doesn't matter how I accelerate my business, my core business. How Som is on the upward trajectory. Us going to Cabo, us launching new programs, us doing all that. None of that shit matters. If we're not in lockstep, none of that shit matters, right? So keep that in mind. And then it gets back into creating your best life. I love this because it allows you to create. So many men have lost creativity. So many men have lost their imagination. Don't. I might have got a C in art, but I ain't one of the most creative guys that are out there because I use this right here. I visualize, but then I act. I love to dream, but I love to do more. And that's when you look at something and say, okay, this area of my life. And guys, don't get caught up in like, I got to do professional, I got to do financial, I've got to do physical, I got to do blah, 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 blah. No, quit. Don't. All right. One thing is going to accelerate everything, right? I'm going to naturally, so example being, like one of my goals is to sell 50,000 copies. And that's a 10x mindset for me to become a bestseller of School of Man is to launch the impact. So that's going to require me putting myself out there like within churches. I have a pretty raw message. Do you think some churches are going to respond? Some other men's organizations seeing that we're revolutionizing men's organizations? No, they're not. They're not going to like the second chapter that says unfuck yourself. But at the same time, my frequency is thinking about that. Upward pressure, upward pressure, upward pressure, right? With the understanding that creating my best life is about being that New York Times best-selling author. It's about creating a world of impact. It's the Steve Jobs mindset that I'm applying within School of Man to put a dent in the universe, not just impacting one life, but impacting the world and showing my kids what it means to create memories, to change lives, etc. Right? So I don't break my stuff up into buckets because the bucket system doesn't work. It fails, and so many guys go with the shotgun scattered approach, right? 5 to 7 is all that you can really focus on. And my number one thing, my one thing this year that I've been training for 2 years is to be, and I will be, the world record holder for most MRFs in 24 hours. And I'll unpack what I've done over these past 18 months that has required me to completely transform who I am as a man and how I approach certain aspects of life, but it allows me to teach, allows me to coach, allows me to create, it allows me, all right, it allows me to go inside myself, kill complacency, right? And 10x other areas of my life. It means that much to me. I'll put everything else on hold to make sure that that's accomplished, but that's not going to happen. All right. So as you go into creating your best life, cut it loose, man. Meaning like it costs you nothing to think big. So that's what we want, and that's the steps you're going to have to take to dominate 2022, but then we're going to start getting lasered in. We're starting at 100 yards, 200 yards, then 1,000 yards, and then we're going to start drilling tacks at 1,000 yards. But if it doesn't create friction, remember, that's how I started. The F is the middle. If it doesn't create friction and it doesn't punch you in the jaw, brother, you're not going to change. You're not going to change. All right, so when we dominate 2022, competition's for sissies. We're looking to dominate thyself, dominate what's in front of us, all right? And from there, we accelerate our growth in a major, major, major way. But you have to bust down this other stuff to get to that level. All right, I thought this was gonna be short, but shit, it's just me. I like to go. I like to go, baby. All right, so anyway, get after it. High value targets this week, that's a big deal, all right? If you're just sitting around not doing shit today, guess what? You're not gonna get shit in return this week. I'm out.